The president says the government is still pursuing its genocide case against Israel. He says legal representatives are preparing to return to the International Court of Justice.
And we continue in our resolve to proceed with this case because it is quite a historic case which demonstrates the empathy and the compassion of the people of South Africa towards the people of Palestine. And this we will continue. In the next few weeks, we will be submitting the real substance of our case, which our lawyers have been working on. And you might recall, and I continue to call you Honorable Judge, you will recall that we did set up a team that is composed of some of the best brains in the legal field, an international team that is working on these matters. So we are confident that we have a solid case to prove that genocide has happened and continues to happen in Palestine.
For some analysis on the president's first question and answer session since the formation of the Government of National Unity, I'm joined by Dr. Metji Makgoba, an independent political analyst. A very good afternoon to you, Dr. Makgoba. Thanks very much for your time. Just what you make overall of that question and answer session, both the questions and the answers, especially given the fact that it was the very first of this new administration?
I think the session demonstrated that Ramaphosa does not understand the responsibilities that he has as a president, because he understands the problems that we have, but the solution that he has provided are not tangible. And he continues to make promises, as he's been doing in the past few years, and the promises that he makes cannot be measured, and this is something that he continuously does. And the shocking thing is that he always knows how to confess the problems of the government. But when it comes to solutions, there are no tangible solutions in terms of how does he going to help the economy to grow and to end unemployment in South Africa.
Yeah, I mean, that question from the leader of the EFF, prompted by, the part that was prompted by a question from the leader of the EFF around Alexandra, statements that he made in Alexandra. And because he then, of course, after being asked to apologize, he then apologized, but then went on to make that admission that even the 1 million houses he promised, or the government promised at the time, which he said were not just for Alexandra, but for the entire country. But then going on to admit that they were able to deliver about a quarter of that 1 million houses subsequently.
Yes, it's basically ruling by hope, ruling by promises in which he's going to do PR for government in terms of what the government can do for the people of South Africa. When that comes, the time comes in which he needs to deliver, then he start another stories in terms of how he's going to do other things. You can look at it with the issue of the fund. If he knew that the government does not have the capacity to establish the fund, he should have just kept quiet on it until he's sure about what he wants to do. But I think most of his speech is about doing public relations for government. But when it comes to tangible, real actions, he's been quite absent since he took office.
But he had to answer the question because it was asked, and he does have an obligation to account before Parliament. But what was also interesting for me was that the question on sovereign wealth funds came from an ANC MP from his own party.
Yes, I think that also may speak to the loopholes within the party, that maybe the party is not necessarily united in Parliament, because I think the issue of the fund is quite important, given that South Africa has multiple problems. Each time when somebody comes with a solution, the people of this country are going to be interested in how can we resolve our issues. But since he took office, there's no a tangible strategy on how the ANC government could have resolved the crisis that is facing the citizens. Even the current administration, Ramaphosa has just demonstrated that there are issues in terms of building state capacity, and we are not yet to see tangible solutions in the near future. And the question coming from the ANC is quite important because it shows that maybe the party might not even have confidence in the president, because the fact of making promises that you later contradict yourself is a matter for concern. And I think people in his party must come up and stand up and start asking those questions, because this has become a pattern by the president in which he makes promises and then he comes again, make another promises. And it is important that even members of his own political party must hold him accountable, so that in the future he knows how to tell the people of this country tangible things that can be seen by everyone else and that can be delivered to the people of this country.
And compare or contrast that with the question from a DA MP, Mikalakis, around private sector investment in the ports and in the railways, and the president's answer to that.
Yes, I think there he is also showing that he's a little bit flat-footed, because he speaks largely about outsourcing. And outsourcing, if he may not be aware, is also an admission that the government has failed to capacitate itself. And he also speaks about private partnerships as if the private sector is going to give the government money for free. There are going to be the costs that are involved, which the government will likely going to fork a lot amount of money. But that conversation in his responses is quite absent. It's as if the private sector is merely here to help the people of this country, whereas the business of business will remain business. And that conversation, he takes it very lightly, as if the private sector is here to grow the economy, whereas they're all about profit maximization.
In response to a question from the leader of the opposition, the MK party, he then addresses him as a judge, to which then the MK party's chief whip responds that he is actually making a mockery. He's mocking him because he was, Dr. Hlophe was in fact impeached, to which the president had to, or was forced to, shall we say, apologize.
Yeah, definitely. I think for him, it could be described as mockery, because if you know that this person was called for impeachment and you were quite aware, and then you continue to address him as a judge, it shows that you might be actually mocking him. And I think the opposition did well by calling him to order, because the members of parliament are called each other, a whole number of members, and I think Ramaphosa should have kept it at that level, that he's an honorable member. I think the issue of judge maybe could have been to mock Judge Hlophe. But the other issue is that the explanation that he gave, it's quite common in South Africa, and I think it's an acceptable explanation, in which people that are in the legal fraternity do call each other by advocate, judge, so on and so forth. But here, because these people are in opposition, it makes sense why they would take issue with him, because they know that maybe he's not sincere with what he's doing.
But I mean, he was impeached, so I'm not sure. But what do you think he was trying to do? Was it just about what the MK party's chief whip alleged, or perhaps was it trying to be a nice guy, you know?
I think if there's been impeachment that took place and you continue to address the person as a judge, it shows that you are taking light of the issue. And then the decision to address him as a judge might not necessarily be sincere. And I think that could be where Ramaphosa comes from. But you also have to understand that Ramaphosa generally likes to take things easy in parliament. Maybe that might be one of those moments where he plays in banter around members of the parliament, and maybe to Hlophe, this did not come out nicely. That's why they stood up and called him to order.
But when all has been said and done, and just looking at the 6 questions and of course the supplementary questions that followed each of those questions. That's what you make and what do you think, of the MPs that are in Parliament, and what you think, or does it tell you anything about what is foremost in their minds, during this in this administration?
Yes, I think the questions are crucial. It shows that the members of Parliament for this administration are interested in how the country is run. They spoke about various sectors of the economy, issues of illicit finance, issues of secure borders, issues of security in railways. And I think those are issues that are hitting the economy. And that is the area that the government needs to focus its energy to in order to resolve some of the issues. And I think by asking those questions, the members of Parliament are showing that actually they're quite aware of the direction this country needs to take. Unfortunately, at the moment, the capacity to resolve some of the serious issues affecting this country, it's not there. And instead of building that capacity, Ramaphosa doesn't seem to be looking at that direction. He wants to involve outsourcing and private partnerships, which are still going to bring more problems, because capital in the administrations, whether in retail, in railways or whether in the ports, it's only there to make profit. And generally, they have been just exposing that Ramaphosa is actually somebody who believes unapologetically to neoliberal politics, and they've not worked, and he still has such hope that maybe in the future capital can come and save the country. And in the past, we've seen that when he talks about he's going to go to the rich to ask for money, and the rich actually in the past 30 years have been getting access to state budget, but the country's economy is still underperforming. Inequality has increased. And this just demonstrates that Ramaphosa does not deeply appreciate the state of this country. And the members of Parliament have clearly demonstrated that maybe the president needs to work extra harder in terms of convincing the public and in terms of saving the economy from further going down.
Dr. Makgoba, thank you very much for your time.